Hello and welcome to Set Talks, the podcast that helps you navigate and connect with the Colorado film industry. Today's guest is Skyler McKelvey. Did I say that right?
You did.
I did. Cool. All right. He is the program manager of the Colorado Office of Film, Television, and Media. The Colorado Office of Film, Television, and Media attracts and facilitates content creation in the state to generate economic growth. Very important. It promotes the state's film and television industry locally, nationally, and internationally while highlighting Colorado's unique rural areas. Skyler, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely, Nick. I appreciate you reaching out.
How's your week going?
It's been good. Busy as usual, but yeah, things are good.
Cool. You said you worked from home today.
I did.
Nice.
It's a blessing to be able to do that.
Do you go into the office? Is it, 50-50 or is it mostly in the office?
No, it's hybrid, so we split it up a bit. But
Cool.
We actually, our parent organization, which is the Office of Economic Development and International Trade,
Okay.
fortuitously has gotten so many employees now that we do not all fit into our office space at once, and so we have to kind of cycle through. So,
Interesting.
yeah, one of the perks of the job, and good
Nice.
to see the growth. So, yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, before we get into like the Colorado Office of Film, Television, and Media, tell me about you.
Sure.
Your experience with that ultimately led you to this role, and what'd you go to college for, and
Absolutely.
and then ultimately just like what led to you kind of getting into this job.
How did I get here? So my background in my past life, I was a writer. So doing prose, like short stories, working on a ill-fated novel that never reached completion, that sort of thing.
Cool.
And I would do a lot of, public readings of my work. I actually managed to get onto the Narrators podcast with some of my fiction.
That's awesome.
And I've always just been incredibly fascinated with narrative and story with a capital S of all kinds. That's my great passion. That's what I love most in the world. And I kind of reached a point, though, after years and years of writing where it's very lonesome work.
Sure.
And I started to kind of get in my head, like I would love to keep doing this kind of creative narrative work, but doing it in a collaborative way. And of course, the dots that connect there are film, because you get to work with all of these really phenomenal artists in just an incredible range of specialties and skills. And, the better everyone does at their job, the better the end result comes out. And you can create something just transcendent and amazing. Whereas if you're writing your own novel or whatever, all the pressure's entirely on you. And if it sucks, that's nobody's fault but your own.
Sure. And the collaborative nature of filmmaking is so inspiring and cool.
It's just amazing. Yeah. And so I kind of got that into my head. And so I ended up going to Colorado Film School, which is part of Community College of Aurora. I think they've changed their name. It's the Department of Cinematic Arts now. But, just loved the experience of being there, studying screenwriting and directing.
That's awesome.
And while I was there, I kind of just fell in love with every facet of filmmaking. And so I also studied post-production and did a lot of, script supervision work and things like that, and just really kind of dabbled as much as I could and get involved as much as I could. So that was an amazing experience. And once I graduated from there, I started freelancing, just doing whatever production work I could get. I was working in commercials. I did work with reality TV for ABC. I worked in video games. I did some drone shows, which is not at all film, but my production, production skills were kind of relevant to it.
That's cool. All around Colorado?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I saw maybe on your LinkedIn, did you do some work for Deck 9?
I did, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I had Webb Pickersgill on here, if you know him.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he directs like the mocap stage and stuff. We did a whole deep dive into that. I'm like fascinated with that.
Oh my God, it was so cool.
Yeah.
That was the facet of their, production that I was working on, was the mocap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, motion capture. So we were like the reference camera operators.
That's awesome.
And it was so cool to see. I'm going to nerd out because I love video games and all things story, as I told you.
Sure.
But it's so cool to see, them working with these actors, and they'll like idling. They'll be like, okay, let's just get some shots of you idling. And it's just them kind of standing there and like moving around and doing innocuous movements that you don't notice when you're playing a video game, but it's like what your character does when you're not moving them around and stuff.
Right.
Or seeing them, read through a scene and do it one way, and then they're like, okay, now let's do version B. And that's where if the player picks this other thing and now everything changes. Super cool to just see like how the sausage gets made on a game like that.
Oh, for sure. I'm obsessed with that. I'm actually attempting to do a short film like that.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Although not to get too off track, but
Please.
I had to kind of come up with a different way to do the body mocap. So there's
Yeah.
like AI software. What I use, it's called Wonder Dynamics.
Okay.
So it's like video, and then it kind of pulls, you basically film video of somebody, and it takes that data of what the character did and puts it onto a 3D character model.
Amazing.
And then they have like a whole app to do the facial performance that actually works pretty good. I'm kind of learning it though.
Sure.
So it's more experimental, but anyway.
That sounds super cool.
But yeah, like, so you've worked on television productions that have come through town and all
Yep.
kinds of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know, as I was freelancing and doing all that stuff, really enjoyed it, got like a lot of really cool, unique opportunities through that I would never have, seen if I hadn't kind of been following this path. But I also kind of, in my time in film school, started to lean back a little bit from this concept of like being the artist to more of like facilitating other people's work. I think that's even part of where like the joy of script supervision came in, because it's like the writer writes the story and your job as the script supervisor is like protect it, and keep the integrity in place as it goes through the production process. And so I really just kind of fell into this rhythm of really just enjoying seeing what other people had and what they were lit up about and working with them to like bring that to life, which ended up being very relevant because that's a lot of the work that I do now, as I have found, this opportunity with the Office of Film, and just am advocating for arts and artists and educators and all of these people, and really kind of helping everyone, again, with that collaborative spirit, kind of helping everyone get their work done and make the most amazing things they can. So
That's awesome. And how long have you been in this role? Like, and you just kind of applied and got the job?
I did. I found out about the opening, and I, pushed for it harder than I've ever pushed for any job in my life.
Nice.
I made a Spotify playlist to boost my confidence before all my interviews and stuff.
Cool. Yep.
But it just really fell in line with kind of where my heart was at that time, and still, of just really wanting to advocate and, help facilitate art and storytelling. And I think that spirit was part of what won me the job. That said, to answer your question, I'm the new guy in the office. I've been there since August. So I think we've just crossed our 6-month threshold, if my math isn't as terrible as it usually is.
Does it feel like a lifetime already? No.
It's been a lot. The learning process, is steep.
Sure.
And it's a lot to catch up on. And it's different work from, a lot of the productions and stuff that I'm on. But also, I have a lot of, prior experience to going to film school that was relevant and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's been super exciting and just fascinating and amazing to be able to kind of step into this new role. And I will also say that when my mom found out that I was going to get health insurance, because that was not something that happened in freelancing, she shed tears of joy. So
nice. Yeah.
So was good.
Yeah. Having that security is good.
It's
yeah.
nice.
I'm with you on that. I was just having a conversation about, going freelance and versus, because I've worked at this, I do videos for a construction products company.
Excellent.
And it's very corporate, but yeah, having that kind of the health insurance and the 401k and, and like a steady paycheck it's comforting. So it's, yeah, it's a tough one. Like to, consider going freelance versus like having a steady job like that. So
absolutely.
I'm with you on that. Well, yeah, I mean, like, tell me about like what does the Colorado Film TV and Media Office, do you know how it was like created?
So, a fun fact, Colorado is the first state in the U.S. to get a government-sanctioned film office.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I did not either until I was researching the office to apply for the position. This was back in 1969, and the entire impetus behind it was to stimulate job growth, stimulate the economy, just create more opportunities. I don't have a lot of the background around how we happened to be the first, but here we were.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I thought so too. And so, today, as I mentioned, the Office of Film, Television, and Media, which we call COFTM for short, is nestled under that Office of Economic Development and International Trade, which we call ODET for short, because you got to have the alphabet soup to keep things flowing along. And so it still exists to serve the same function of economic impact, job, growth, education, career pathways, and that sort of thing to kind of uplift Colorado. OED also houses, our Office of Tourism, the Outdoor Recreation Office. It's, just all these different aspects of Colorado that help to kind of stimulate job growth and economic opportunity. So within the Colorado Office of Film, Television, and Media, we have basically three main pillars, and there's plenty that we do besides, but these kind of main things that we focus on are incentivizing film projects, educational programs and career pathways, and film festival support. So, we try to incentivize any production within the state that has a certain budget amount and is really looking to produce jobs as a result of that and things like that, or any production from out of state. If there's a major film production coming from Hollywood or anywhere, if we can, incentivize them to bring that operation here and do their production here, that's one of the things we focus on. Tons of educational programs, kind of nurturing and uplifting the next generation of filmmakers and introducing people to film who hadn't considered it as a career pathway or an artistic pursuit. And then just working really closely with all of the film festivals in the state. And I'm always so excited to talk about how Colorado goes crazy for film festivals.
For sure.
We have a ton of really amazing and very niche film festivals because there's so many, and amazingly, they don't necessarily compete. They just kind of find their cool little specific thing that they're about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I always think that's really fun to be able to just see how much people are working on with presenting film and getting people excited about it and stuff like that. So lots of other things that we do, but those are kind of the three main staples of our office.
No, I so far that's been one of my big things with around here is going to the film festivals.
Oh my God.
The Denver Film Festival. I did have Kevin Smith on here.
Yeah.
And he was a super nice guy and gave a really nice overview of the festival, and that's quite a film festival.
It's crazy.
And then just, the Boulder Film Festival, and there's a lot of environmental film festivals, and the I haven't been to the Telluride, I guess, regular film festival, but I've been to the horror one. And oh my God, amazing. I've gone to it twice now. And I'm going again this next year. It was I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Just so good.
Sounds amazing. I'm going to have to try to go to that one too.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God. And it's during, you kind of catch the tail end of the fall leaves on the drive up there, and it's just gorgeous.
Perfect.
And yeah, just really cool.
Vibe.
Well, yeah, can you kind of give me a breakdown of the tax incentive, actually,
Sure.
since you mentioned that? So if you could just kind of walk me through it. And whatnot, just soup to nuts, because that's something that a lot of people are always kind of talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So as of 2024, Colorado has a new incentive program. And what it is, it's $5 million annually, renewing for 5 years. So we are now beginning our second year of this. And the way that it works, it is a tax rebate program. So if you are hitting all the qualifications, including a certain spend threshold here within the state, then when you go to file your taxes for the spend on that production, you can get up to 20% refunded on your taxes. And that number bumps up to 22 if you happen to film in rural or marginalized areas, which, as a sub-branch of the Office of Economic Development, is to just make sure that statewide these productions are benefiting everyone and really trying to infuse the economy and job opportunities in communities that might be overlooked in a lot of other ways. So the qualifications, for the tax incentive program, if you are coming from outside the state and you are doing a feature film production, it is a $1 million spend.
Okay.
If you are doing commercials for television or video game production, because that's something that our office works with a lot too, which is nice that I have that, in my production background. I think that was one of the things that stood out about me in my application and stuff. The price for that is $250,000.
Okay.
And then if you are coming from within the state, those numbers come down to $100,000. So, if you're making a feature film here in Colorado and you're Colorado based, that number caps at $100,000 and you're eligible there. In order to qualify, you need to be able to demonstrate 80% of your funding, which is just to ensure that you've got the appropriate backing and that you can make this production get off the ground. And you've got to be able to do 50% local hire for cast and crew.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Even for these big productions and stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. And this, like you said, this is pretty new, right? Or you kind of updated it last year.
I believe it was
2 years.
May of last year.
Okay. That's awesome.
It is. It's amazing. And it's very, very exciting because of the legislative process for determining how much will go towards incentives and how that program will work. It can fluctuate from year to year based off of how Colorado's economy is doing.
Okay.
And so having this 5-year runway assured just really kind of opens a lot of doors and creates a lot of opportunity because, as you know, coming from film production, it takes a lot of planning.
Sure.
You don't decide to make a film and then 3 months later you're on set shooting. Yeah, I mean, it happens, but that's not ideal, and especially if you're spending $1 million or $100,000. And so it just creates this runway where, you know, film productions that are just in pre-production and are ramping up and looking for where they'll shoot when the time comes, they can consider Colorado. And if it's in that's next year or in 2 years, that incentive will still be in place. A series that's looking for a place to shoot and needs, you know, 3 consecutive years to film or something, that incentive will be in place. And so it just creates this sustainable runway that really opens a lot of opportunities for productions to come here or start within the state and grow.
That's amazing. That's super exciting. And then also, you had mentioned the $5 million. Is there a cap on the amount of incentive towards productions? Because I feel like I've heard someone was telling me about that like the way it was before, there was like kind of a cap on the amount that could be incentivized. So like maybe
get back.
Yeah, or something like, and maybe like a couple productions would sort of exhaust the tax incentive and then it was done for the year or something like that. Is this like all productions kind of have can potentially, you know, qualify for this? Is it? I don't know.
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, and I will confess that, you know, the amount to which I interact with the incentive program is not as much as, say, our deputy director, who's very actively engaged in it, knows it in and out, and could answer any question you could possibly think of. But my understanding is, you know, the up to 20 or 22%, depending on where you're filming and things like that, they fluctuate with each production to kind of accommodate for how much they're spending, you know, how much assistant, like if a major studio comes in, that number might fluctuate a little bit more because they might not be as concerned about getting as much back, or they might, you know, want as much as they can get. And so my understanding is it's working within that range so that they're getting a number that feels satisfying to them while still being able to accommodate the amount that is allocated per year and consider other productions.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, so it's not like two huge Hollywood films are going to kind of exhaust the resource for people, you know, and then the locals who are trying to make a feature film for $1,000, it's all gone and they don't get it or something. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Awesome. Well, that's exciting. I have the filmmakers behind that Welcome to the Fishbowl film, and they're going to be on here next week. Their episode won't come out for a couple weeks, but yeah, I had that on there as a question, is like, because they were able to, I think they had just been able to kind of tap into the new tax incentive. And I remember seeing an article where they were very excited about that and stuff. So that's really cool to hear. I'll be interested to kind of hear it from their perspective too, of like, you know, being able to use that as a resource. I'm sure that was really big for their budget and stuff.
I will be watching out for that episode because I would love to see it. We're very excited to be involved with their production, especially as, you know, local film shoot, making this feature film. And I even got the opportunity to come down and visit their set at one point.
Ooh, cool.
Since we had worked with them on the incentive program, and they had done this incredible setup of building a set within one of the sound stages here that was like a rural prison, like almost an old-timey prison that, you know, had been updated. You know?
Oh, cool.
And it was just gorgeous, and it was so cool to see what they were doing, and just, it was amazing. So we were very excited to be able to work with them. And
what studio? Just out of curiosity, like 38th. What studio? Because like, that's something I've been wondering about, and we'll touch on that later as far as like, you know, some of like that Colorado film study where it identified certain things or whatever. That was one of them. It's like infrastructure, studios, like to build, you know, sets and stuff. Yeah. Do you happen to know, or maybe that isn't common knowledge? I don't know.
Off the top of my head, cannot recall the name of it. That's all right. And I know I could find it in an instant, but in this moment, I'm not pulling it out.
I will be asking those filmmakers. Yeah, I heard you guys built out a whole prison in this studio. I want to hear about that. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, like, you know, what... can you touch on the film directory and stuff like that? So there's a film crew and support services directory.
Yes, indeed.
And that was something I talked about with the CFVA, as like they managed a directory for a while, and they did mention that the state is now putting together a directory. Mm-hmm. And, you know, can you give me an overview of that? And ultimately just like, who is it meant to serve? Maybe like productions coming into town. Just kind of give me a rundown on that directory. And then ultimately, how does somebody like local talent get on that
How do you
directory?
get in there? Sure. Yeah. So starting with the crew and support services database, as you would guess from the name, this is a database that the state maintains in order to, you know, list professional crew members with film backgrounds so that they can be, enlisted in productions large and small, which is a key point that I like to hit on. It is, if you are interested in getting involved, you can go to coloradofilm.org and you'll be able to find it there. The requirements for it are basically that you have 3 credits under your belt. The reason for that is that we want to be able to assure people that we are pointing towards this directory to find crew, that these are vetted, and it's not just somebody who bought a boom mic and says, yeah, I'm a sound guy, sure.
Right. Gotta have good experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a hurdle to get past, but once you have those 3 credits, then you're eligible and you're in. So the way that it's a statewide database, you can even list yourself showing that you're willing to work statewide, which is a huge help to film productions, because if they're shooting out on the side of a mountain or something, they want to know who's going to be able to come out there, and so you can show like, yes, I will drive wherever you need and come and do this work. It's also really interesting because the support services aspect of it, we have all kinds of crew on this database, like everything that you could think of on a film set, but we also have services like catering or rental cars is one that we've got on there, and you can get a camera, an on-screen car, you can get transportation for crew, you can get something like, if basically anything that you need, like porta potties. So
sure,
anything adjacent to film, which, as I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it. That's not just hiring grips and PAs and things like that, but sometimes you just need weird services that are kind of tangential, and we list those as well and make sure that they're vetted and they've done this work before and they're familiar with how film production works. And the database is just an amazing resource because, like I mentioned, large and small, if we are working with a project that's incentivized and they're coming from within the state, but maybe they're filming in an area that they're not so familiar with, or especially if they're coming from outside the state and they're like, well, look, we have to get that 50% cast and crew hire. Can you help us find those people? And it's like, absolutely. We point you to this database. They're all vetted. They've got credits. We know that they know what they're doing. And so it's just a really amazing way to be able to connect these productions that are gearing up for some major filming to be able to like get all the crew members that they need. But it's not exclusive to that sort of thing. Like we even have, very, very recently, I was talking to a film student who's making a production, and she's saying, look, I could use a little bit of help getting some crew because there's a couple of holes that we aren't able to fill from the people, my classmates and things like that. And we can point them towards this database, and they can contact these people and say, hey, would you be willing to work with us and help us out on this shoot? So yeah, just a really great resource, kind of statewide, just whatever your project is, whatever it is that you're looking to make. If you're looking for that specific someone to help round out your crew, we might be able to help you do it.
That's awesome. And I mean, do you guys have like productions from like out of state? Maybe like if someone from Hollywood is coming to shoot their thing, it's like, do they just contact you and you're like, well, here's our directory, 50% needs to be
absolutely
from this directory, essentially? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's
since
cool.
we're, if we're already working on them to get that incentive going, then we're in talks with them already. And then once we kind of get to that point of like, make sure you've got your 50%, it's just a very easy, organic way to say, and let us point you towards this. So yeah, it's a good resource.
That's awesome.
And similarly, we have the location database.
Yes.
Very straightforward. If you are a property owner, if you've got a house, a ranch, a business, whatever, and you're interested in having people come and film in it, you can reach out. You can go to coloradofilm.org and you can list the location. We just ask that you have photos of the property, because it's very important if you're looking for a location to film in to have a sense of what it looks like, and as many of the different areas, and just be able to kind of picture the project that you're working on in that space. And then for the crew database as well, of course we want your contact info and stuff, but it's not publicly visible unless someone submits an inquiry. So if your location is listed, like say you own a house and you put it on the database, your address, your contact information is not specifically listed. It'll show the area that you're in so they can get a sense of that.
Right.
And then when somebody's looking at the database, if they say, hey, I really love this house, I'd love to contact the property owner and see, the terms there, they can reach out to us and we'll pull that information and get it to them. So that's just for the peace of mind and, safety of the people involved, so that you're not just putting your information right out there. But if somebody sees your property and they say, hey, that's perfect, can we contact them? They can do that.
And how would, it's like it's a directory, so you can just search for, I need a bank for a bank robbery movie or whatever.
Yep.
And then ultimately, do you guys help them make the connection with that person, or how does that work? I'm just curious.
So basically, the way that it typically works is that they would submit an inquiry through the website that we run the database from, which is Real Scout. And then that inquiry very often comes directly to me. If it doesn't, someone else in the office handles it. But then what we do is just go and we pull the contact information and reach back out to them and say, here's who you can reach out to, here's how to get a hold of them. And then typically they take it from there because, they can call the property owner and you see what the rates might be and things like that.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah. Is it kind of like, is there a standard rate, or I guess it's different, kind of like if you were Airbnb a space, it's like whatever they decide is the appropriate date or whatever.
Yes, that's exactly right. It comes down between you and the property owner. But in a way, I think that's advantageous as well, because once again, if you're a major production looking to film in a mansion or something like that, then, you can deal with negotiate whatever rates your production company is able to handle. Sure. And if you're, a film student looking to make something, you can also come to them and say, hey, we don't have a ton of cash, but, we'll put you in the credits and we'll give you as much as we can. And so I think that actually works out kind of nicely because it's a little bit flexible and it's just up to whatever the property owner feels is, worth their time. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And I've kind of messed around with it a little bit. It is a cool database, the way you can kind of pick the key term for your location, and then it gives you a bunch of options and stuff. It's very user friendly, I thought.
It is kind of fun to play around with. One of the most recent ones that I saw submitted to it was a mine.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, a literal mine. And I think it was like an old silver mine or something like that. And it was just kind of wild to look at the photos that they had submitted and just be like, oh, that would be a great space to film. And now it's available. So yeah,
totally.
It's kind of fun to just explore.
Very cool. Yeah. If anyone's filming like a Western or something like that, it would be cool. Right. Well, we touched on the tax incentives. We got the location directory. Who are the, I noticed on the website you had like regional film liaisons.
Yes.
And it looked like in some of the main cities and stuff, like around Colorado, there were their own teams and stuff. Yep. And Colorado is pretty spread out and stuff. So that makes sense, that there's certain teams in certain areas. Like, can you talk about that? Just like some of the different offices and ultimately how you guys coordinate to kind of get productions what they need depending on where they're filming.
Absolutely. So the regional liaisons are a network of volunteers that we've got, like you said, just across the state. And we really try to work and coordinate to try and make sure that we've got a liaison in basically every area of the state, because it is a pretty large place. And, as much as we pride ourselves on the work we do, we are not capable of knowing every inch of Colorado and every permitting requirement of every municipality and things like that. And so these regional liaisons, it's just this network of volunteers that coordinate with our office. And a lot of them, I think in fact most of them, have backgrounds in like location management, location scouting, or at the very least, are producers and filmmakers through and through. And so it's an amazing resource because they know the ins and outs of what a production requires. And they also know their area. And so it's, as the name says, it's good to have this liaison where if someone's like, hey, I would love to film in Grand Junction, who do I contact about that? What are their permitting requirements? How much would it cost me? Do you know of any cool locations there? On and on and on.
Sure.
We have this person we can put them in touch with. That person can act as an intermediary to, local officials if they need, or even business owners if there's like a specific location. And they can kind of help to explain some of the process of things like, intermittent road closures, right? Like we're going to shut down the street for 10 minutes and film for 10 minutes and then open it back up and then shut it down for 10 minutes, or, just some of the weird kind of more quirky things that film production sometimes requires.
Sure. Or even just like catering. Do you have any good catering recommendations? I'm sure they would,
Oh my God, absolutely. And especially, even just for like location scouting, it's a phenomenal resource because you'll get somebody who's like, look, we want to film in a high alpine setting on a mountain and there's got to be snow, but there can't be a freeway nearby. Do you know where we can go? And it has to be 2 hours from the airport or less. And it's like, well, I personally don't know. I could certainly do some looking and find out, but one of those liaisons does. And it's just amazing how quickly they can get you that information and say, oh yeah, absolutely. This is where you want to go. We'll help you get those permits and get you all set up.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, can you tell me about some of the other programs? I mean, you guys have a lot of different, there was a whole page of like different options and, I could probably have a question for each of those.
Sure.
But, maybe give me some of the highlights. I wrote a couple down. There was like the career connections panel, the film exposure program. there's a lot of stuff you guys do for student stuff, the high school film student scholarship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you could just walk me through some of the other programs.
So Career Connections Panel is a program where oftentimes it'll be a teacher or like a guidance counselor who reaches out to us and says, hey, a lot of the students at our school are very interested in film, but they don't exactly know where to begin, or they just like more information about it. So the Career Connections Panel is a really amazing resource, because what we do is we contact a filmmaker, an industry professional, and the thing that I think is coolest about this program is that it's up to the students what type of person they want to talk to, right? So the students kind of reach a consensus with themselves of, hey, we want a director, or we'd love to speak to a screenwriter, or we want an editor. And then we do the legwork of saying, okay, we can find somebody who works in that field. And we do a virtual call, which is great because then these professionals aren't necessarily having to like drive down or take time away from a production if they're having to be working on something at that moment, but they can just take, this time to get this FaceTime in with these students. And we get all the students into the classroom, we get them on the video call, and it's just Q&A time. And the students can just, I think it's such a cool program.
Especially because it's like request based too. That's cool.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are you guys interested in? And then we'll find somebody that kind of fits that, which I would imagine would just make it all the more exciting for them,
God. Yeah. I just love it so much, and I think it's amazing that it's kind of oriented towards their interests like that.
Totally.
And just lets them get a sense of, a day in the life, and ask whatever questions happen to spring into mind, and just get a sense of like, what does it look like to work in film, and get those answers from somebody who's actively doing it and making their living doing it.
That's cool. So just any kind of school can kind of reach out and coordinate that with you guys.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to work with them for that.
That's cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, what other ones? Now I'm curious. I want to hear about it.
So if the Career Connections Panel is kind of like an introduction to, what filmmaking kind of looks like, and just starting to answer some of those buzzing questions if you think that you're interested in film, the Film Exposure Program is an amazing expansion on that. So this is a program where they connect industry professionals with a teacher at a high school, and they come down. They typically have about 40 students join these sessions, and they run 8 sessions that are about 3 hours each. And these industry professionals come down and they teach them screenwriting. They teach them all about pre-production. They teach them about production. They film. They teach them about editing. And so it's kind of, this like 8-week crash course or 8-session crash course into all things filmmaking, and just getting students actively involved, getting cameras in their hands, getting them behind some editing software. And, if the Career Connections is all about like getting your initial questions and curiosities answered, the Film Exposure Program is about getting your hands in there and seeing how it's done. It's a super amazing program. One of the programs that I think the office is most proud of, perhaps. I don't know if I should even say that. It's maybe not fair to call them out in that way. But yeah, we're incredibly proud of the Film Exposure Program.
That is really cool.
It's really amazing. And one of the most exciting things about it is that part of the program is that the school gets to keep the gear package. So every time they put together one of these courses, they put together a gear package to bring and have these kids work with. And then when they leave, they say, that's yours. And they leave it with the school so that they can continue to, do this work and stuff.
That's awesome.
I know I would have
done
anything for that in high school.
Yeah, totally. That's really cool, though.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So.
Very cool. Yeah. And just, what was on here? The high school film students, do you do scholarships?
Yes. So we do student-led educational grants.
Okay.
And it's actually not exclusive to high schoolers. So if you are a college student or a high schooler and you are making a film as part of a class project, you can reach out to us. Now, of course, I will say it is, pending budget availability and things like that. Like, we're not necessarily guaranteeing that if you work out, you're going to get it. You do have to apply, and we basically have you submit 3 pieces of proof of your project, which can be, like cast and crew list. Budget is a good one,
Script.
Yeah. Script is a great example. Just to show us that you are doing that pre-production work.
Sure.
And, kind of verify that you're already underway and you're getting ready to be able to shoot this thing. And then, we will set a meeting with you, talk through your project, look at the materials that you get. And we also ask that you submit a letter of support from a professor or a teacher, which is just to show that it is actually a class activity.
Nice.
So that, you're not just like, oh yeah, I'm just making something on the side and thought I'd see if I can get some money.
Right.
But yeah, and then, once your application is approved, we'll connect you with a grant, and you can use it to rent gear or pay for music or hire people off the crew database if you need some, professional help. So it's just a really exciting way for students that are kind of spearheading their own film project to get a little bit of help, because Lord knows it's hard to pay for when you're a high school or college student and you're trying to make the best film you can. So
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, definitely people should look into that if you're in high school or college. Yeah, and you got a film going. Absolutely. Well, I did want to bring up this Colorado film study that was done. And it was this study, I think it was like 2 years ago, that sort of, it kind of took a litmus test on some of the different factors of film and television and media in Colorado. And it identified some different things, like the tax incentive was one, which that's amazing. The update that was made on to the tax incentive this past year, that sounds good to me. I don't know. I'd have to look into other tax incentives of states, but it sounds like a good one in terms of drawing people here. But like, infrastructure, it mentioned like different things like people being kind of siloed. And I've noticed that even outside of like film, like friends of mine that are like into like, skateboarding. He was like, it's very siloed here. There's like a whole group of people doing skateboarding down in Colorado Springs, and then a whole group in Denver, and they all hate each other and this and that. And so I don't know. And just the landscape makes sense that would be the case, that things are a bit siloed, and there's like a lot of, maybe there's a project going on in like Telluride that people down in Denver or, Colorado Springs didn't even know was going on. So I don't know. I mean, like what is your kind of take on the Colorado film industry, and I mean, where do you see it headed? I know you guys are probably always trying to give updates to the tax incentive and pushing these resources, but yeah, I don't know, what's your take on the environment around here with that stuff?
My take is, I honestly am extremely hopeful and optimistic. I think that there is just an incredible amount of success and growth that has occurred. And I think that things are moving in a direction that to me points towards a really bright future for film in Colorado. Now, that's not to say that there's not plenty of work to be done, and there always will be. But I think that, the new tax incentive program shows an excitement around filmmaking. It demonstrates that, Colorado is invested and is excited in growing that industry and providing those opportunities. And I think that there is just a lot of growth and development and, as I said, success that has occurred. And I think that momentum is going to maintain. That's the perspective that I have.
No, for sure. And I mean, the even to just hear like the 50% crew hire, because that's something I've just heard, people talk about, like, oh, like productions will come here from LA, but they don't really hire people around here. They bring their own crew, and it's great that they're here, but in spending money here, but ultimately, like, I can't, they're not hiring people around here and blah blah blah. And it's like, that's really cool that you guys were able to kind of have that little line note of like,
Absolutely.
hey, if you're gonna work for this tax incentive, like, you have to hire local people and whatnot, not just spend money on
Absolutely.
catering or whatever. It's like you should hire some production people.
Yeah.
That still fits into that, but I mean, like, the crew people for like the filmmaking process itself.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Like, I think that's such an amazing part of that tax program, which again, is just demonstrating that the Office of Film and the Office of Economic Development and the state as a whole is really invested in providing opportunities for Coloradans across the state, in seeing the economy grow, in seeing new opportunities. And film, it is kind of the nature of the beast that if a major production is happening, all facets of the economy are lifted up by that, because you've got people staying in hotels, they're eating at restaurants, they're buying the gasoline, and God knows they need to hire people. And so I agree. Like, I love it so much that this tax program includes, this requirement that if you're going to come and film Colorado, hire Coloradans.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that's one of those indicators that I'm talking about I think that there's a lot of growth and development that has occurred, and I think we have a lot to be proud of and a lot to be excited about. And I think that, the conversations that are happening, the connections that are happening, to me, just really kind of illustrate that we are continuing on this upward trend.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Just from some of the people I've talked to lately, and I went to this event. They did this like town hall event where they kind of got people together, and
Yes.
and it was just really awesome to see like that kind of community come together, and even to just get together and have a drink and like talk about like how can we move forward as an industry in this state.
Yeah.
It was very inspiring, I thought, and really, really interesting. But yeah, anyways, I intend to stay here, and I would love to, I do my construction videos for my
Sure.
company, but I would, of course, in my heart of hearts is to be a filmmaker, and direct feature films and whatnot. And I couldn't think of a better place to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so much scenery here. I mean, like, obviously, and I know there's a history of like Westerns and television shows that have already filmed here, but yeah, Westerns, I feel like you could probably film Lord of the Rings here if you really needed to.
Absolutely.
Like fantasy films, like there's just such good locations. And so that's really exciting that you guys were able to, make some tweaks to the tax incentive and really encourage people to film here more and all that. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where it all goes.
I am too. I truly am. And I'm really happy that you mentioned that town hall, basically.
Yeah.
Because they reached out to us as well, and they invited us. The deputy commissioner of our office, Ariel Brackfeld, went. She said it was phenomenal. Like, she was so excited about it, and we're very excited for the next one and the next one that they're going to do. And I've seen a lot of work like that occurring to address the concern of being siloed. And in a way, that's part of what makes me so hopeful is that, yes, that is a concern, and it's something that we want to work on, but people are working on it, and they're doing really amazing stuff with it. And in fact, I happen to know that Shauna Schultz of Mass Effects was one of the coordinators of that town hall, who was on this podcast. Yeah, and so, that sort of thing just makes me so excited. Within our office, we actually just coordinated a summit for the regional liaisons, because we've had this network of volunteers, and we realized that we need to get all these people in the same room and let them discuss the work that they're doing and figure out best practices and figure out the communication tree, like who do we contact when we need to know from your region of Colorado. And so I just feel like, even just within the time that I've been within the office, I'm seeing this really amazing and inspiring dedication to bringing everyone in the industry together and really finding ways to like open the communication, discuss the hurdles that are ahead of us and address them together. I think that film study was another part of that as well, of like, let's really dig into it and figure out what we can do to make this grow. So yeah, I think that's really exciting.
No, for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. Is there anything that you wanted to maybe mention that you guys have coming up, or what things that people should be looking out for 2025?
Well, I was going to mention Welcome to the Fishbowl, because that's definitely a very exciting thing. This is a little bit weird, but I'm going to circle back to that if I can.
No worries.
This is something I do to help me catch an idea or a thought before it gets away from me.
Oh, I like that.
But another thing, my wife taught me this, and I love it. It's like you're grabbing the thought before it can get away. But you were mentioning, like Westerns and things being filmed in Colorado too. One thing I did want to highlight also, the implementation of the tax program that we've got. I think in particular because on the one hand, because Colorado has stunning scenery just across the state, like really a beautiful place to come and film. And so, of course, a lot of commercials, a lot of Westerns come out here and they take advantage of that as well. They should. But currently, the film production that happens in Colorado, I believe it's like 65% happens in rural areas, which I think is really amazing and exciting because absolutely, we've got some beautiful landscapes here in Colorado, and you should come and film them and take advantage of that. But B, because it also means that those productions are going to areas that could use the economic impact, use the job opportunities, use that cash spend. And so it really just, to me, that 65% of filming happening in rural areas kind of highlights that, like, when film comes to Colorado, it benefits all of Colorado.
Totally, yeah.
So yeah, I apologize that I kind of digressed in our conversation there to go back to that, but you were mentioning Westerns, and I was like, that's right, I wanted to mention that. So looking forward, in terms of exciting things that are coming, there is a lot of really exciting stuff that's coming, and some of the things are in such, their baby state where it's just beginning to be formed and kind of developed, and so I don't necessarily want to like reveal too much, but there is a lot of similar to what we were even just talking about, these conversations around how do we bring everybody together, whether it's filmmakers or film festivals, or how do we make sure that we're all communicating and addressing the concerns that we have and recognizing the successes that we're earning, and continue to do what we've been doing, which is to grow film in Colorado. And so there's just a ton happening, kind of behind the scenes that will be very exciting to announce, but which I don't know that I necessarily should give away just yet.
No worries, no worries.
But, of course, we have, Welcome to the Fishbowl, just filmed in Colorado. The film Elevation, which was part of the Denver Film Fest. A lot of it was filmed here in Colorado. It got the incentive. And so we've got some pretty exciting projects that have just come out or about to come out that we, were able to partner with and help incentivize. The film exposure program, is growing. So they're looking at starting to reach out and begin programs with new schools, and they're really kind of gaining steam as they go forward, which I think is amazing because it's just such an awesome program. And then, of course, and I don't know if this was something that you were going to mention or not, but I feel like I would be remiss not to mention it. We have this very exciting opportunity where Sundance Film Festival is...
I've heard about that.
...considering Colorado.
Yep.
They were looking at cities all across the United States. They narrowed it down from, I think, somewhere around 60 to like 16, down to, at this point, 3. And Boulder, Colorado is one of those 3. It is Boulder, Colorado, Cincinnati, Ohio, and a joint bid for Park City and Salt Lake City. Their deliberation process is their own. I do not know which way they're leaning, but the fact that Boulder, Colorado is one of those 3 finalists is phenomenally exciting. And we are so thrilled and just proud to even have been considered. And of course, hopeful.
Totally.
But whoever, wherever they go, that's their decision, and good on you,
Sure.
So yeah, I think that's, another sign that there is a lot of excitement about film in Colorado that is happening. Even just the fact that Boulder would be considered and make it into those finalists kind of shows that there is momentum, there is growth, there is excitement for film in Colorado. And I think that some, really phenomenal and exciting things are on the way. So.
Absolutely. Well, just to close out, how should people follow some of this stuff, and look out for updates and stuff, website, social media?
Absolutely. So our website is coloradofilm.org, making sure to plug that as much as I can.
And I will include all these in the description as well.
Sure. So and I'm realizing now I'm doing that in the cheesiest way possible. But just to help you remember, coloradofilm.org is the place to go. You also can follow the Colorado Office of Film, Television, and Media on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Instagram, just for some of the exciting projects about film festivals that are happening, incentivized projects that are happening, and, other fun news that's coming out as it comes along.
You guys put out, like, if a film's coming to town or whatever, like, hey, guys, like, this film production is coming to town. Like,
yes, yeah.
As long as you can, and it's not like,
Exactly, yeah. Within the terms, because, I'm sure you'll understand, but, like, when in the initial stages of getting approved for the incentivization and things like that, it's all, like it'll have like a project name and things like that.
Right.
So until they're ready to release the details, we can't really say anything about it. But once they are, we're happy to do that, and always very excited to say, hey, welcome to the Fishbowl is happening, or,
Totally.
This film festival is about to begin, or the film exposure program is about to kick off its new year. So yeah, you can follow us on those socials, and I always, when I go and give presentations, when I talk to people about the office, I always just want to emphasize that we are here to help. That is the attitude that I have, and I believe that is true for everybody that I work with. And so I really encourage you, if you have questions about any of the programs you've heard about, if you want to learn about starting a film festival and possibly getting a sponsorship, if you're a student and you'd like some help with a project, anything, if you just have questions and you're in the film industry or not, you're just wondering about how some of these things work, please reach out. You can find my contact information on the website. You can reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Well, thank you so much. No, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
You guys are doing great work in the office. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you. This is Set Talks, the podcast that helps you navigate and connect with the Colorado film industry. Thanks for tuning in.